of the New Art Dealers Alliance, and we're really excited to introduce our VIP ambassador, Helena Czernecka, a contemporary art collector and board member of the Friends of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw. Helena will be taking us through her top picks from the fair, and joining her on the panel are the following galleries: 14A from Hamburg, Soft Opening from London, Gallery Artbeat from Tbilisi. Everyone keep their microphones off unless you're in direct conversation with either Helena or the galleries. Free to keep your cameras on, but please note that the panel is being recorded. Over to you, Helena.
Yes, thank you very much, Heather. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all and to meet some of you. Thank you also for the invitation. It was very exciting to make my own selection from Nada. I wish we could all be in Miami now, but hopefully next year. Yes, so should we start with the artwork selection, or should I say a few words about...
Start. You ready?
Yes.
Whatever you like, Helena. If you'd like to say a few words about yourself or go straight into it.
I think we can go straight through it. I guess that's the best way to go. So the first work, we have a slide presentation. Yes. Thank you. Gerrit and Emmanuel's work, which I would really love to see in person, because I never actually had this opportunity. I discovered their work for Instagram. And it's one that immediately caught my attention because of the craft. And that's also why I guess I would really love to see it in person. I love this kind of symbolism of this gesture, which for me reminded me very much of throwing down a gauntlet, and which reminds me of all the challenges we've been through the 2020. But I see that in this series, actually, the hand is holding on to different items, everyday items, and that'll be really interesting to hear about. This one also obviously reminds me, or maybe it is, a plastic glove like the ones we used to wear, we had to wear now throughout the pandemic. And also I was curious to hear more about the title, which is Parisienne. And yes, hello, hi.
Hi, Helena. Hi. Yeah, thank you, Heather, Elizabeth, and of course, Helena, for choosing, for selecting this work in your spotlight. Maybe I can, say a brief little introduction to Gerrit and Emmanuel, and then I'll go over to our presentation. So really, the work you've selected is a collaboration between Gerrit von Brinkmann, who lives and works in Hamburg, and then Emmanuel Maute, who lives and works in Vienna. And they do both have individual artistic practices and careers. However, from time to time, they do collaborate. And we actually have a show right now at the gallery, which is also collaborative work titled Fragments of Friendship. Gerrit and Emmanuel met in Hamburg in 2014. They both studied under Andreas Leminski, and that's when they sort of started working together. And I think sort of it's important to mention within their entirety of their work that they always question and review sort of the parallels between deep social relationships, but then also collaborative artistic production. And so when it comes to our Nada presentation, which sadly, I wish you could all see it in person, these works, because they are in person, they work very different with light. But so for the Nada presentation, they made a series of 16 works titled Parisienne. And so at first when you see them, and I think that becomes quite clear also on the presentation that you made. So immediately you think of glass windows and Tiffany glass and ornate Gothic church windows, which are very much steeped, in history and Art Nouveau, but that sort of continues through 20th century hobby kitsch. And when you then look at these works sort of on closer inspection, you see that the technique and the materiality and also obviously the imagery is totally out of date. So these works are actually made from cardboard and epoxy. So it's not glass work, which sort of underlines or highlights, I think, something that's really important in their work, namely that there's always this very fine line between or moving between, high and low art, and also referencing this trail, let's say, from very exclusive craftsmanship to this, let's say, sort of more of a mass production or like hobby tinkering situation. So yeah, there's a lot happening on the material level. But as you said, Helena, two of the works, they're different. So two of the 16 works are hands holding gloves. 14 works from the Parisienne series, actually they refer to an extensive database of how-to guides, which, I don't know, we know from WikiHow, I guess that's the most prominent. And with the Parisienne works, you also ask for the title. So Parisienne is the French word for condoms. Gareth and Emmanuel really wanted to highlight this gesture or this moment that usually takes place behind closed doors. It's this very intimate, private, short moment. And then this sort of intimate sensual moment transfers or transitions into this very pragmatic deed. So it's sort of these two actions that are rowed behind one another. And then the two works, of which one is Parisienne set, which we also see on the presentation, holding sort of, as you said, this medical glove. I think that's an association many of us have with these gloves right now. Now it's actually quite interesting because there are two of these works holding two hands holding gloves, and those works actually quite directly relate to the process of making the series. So when making those works, Gareth and Emmanuel, they pour the resin in the cardboard frame sort of, and they always wear exactly these gloves. And again, similar to the Parisienne, you have sort of this moment after, the moment where you're maybe exhausted, you've done something, you're finished. It's sort of this thing where it transitions to the next moment. So I think there's sort of this double moment of double dealing where Gareth and Emmanuel managed to comment on their own work while they're making it. It's sort of a progression of that. But I also thought it's interesting, Helena, how you saw it. I mean, the symbolism, yes, of course, but then also this sort of this everyday action that is turned into this suddenly exposed grand gesture, especially right now, where I think that a lot of people have actually said that the works, especially the glove works, do comment, of course, on the current situation we're in right now. So that was something they actually didn't, they didn't really have that on their mind making it, but it is something these works do call to mind. Yeah,
there is something similar in the material also of this surgical glove and these condoms. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, and it's this sort of, and that it was quite interesting because for the presentation, so we installed them in this sort of kiosk, which is completely flooded with light. And that's when you see the coloring, and it's sort of this very delicate membrane or whatever, so they are in the texture, they're really, really, really fine and really delicate, as sort of the real object is in the end of the day. Yeah.
Can you tell us something about upcoming projects by Gareth and Emmanuel? Is there something?
Yeah, so Gareth Yeah, so they both show, right, so we have the show up right now at the gallery. Fragments of Friendship is the title. Gerrit has a show at the Kunstverein in Reutlingen right now and has a show coming up at the Kunsthalle Emden. Those individual projects, and then I think that's, you know, everything is so flexible and spontaneous right now, but those are sort of the closest projects that hopefully will happen as planned early next year, January, February.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And oh, okay. Should we have questions about each particular work at a time, or all the questions afterwards? Afterwards. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Marie.
Thank you, Helena.
Yes, Gina's glass of Chardonnay, which I think speaks very much for itself, and it's a question afterwards. And actually, this directness of Gina's works is something that I very much appreciate. This simplicity in a way. And I also think it's quite pertinent to the current situation with her pastiche of all these objects we surround ourselves in our very much design conscious, Instagram informed lives, especially now during lockdown when we hid ourselves and just surrounded ourselves with these items or drinks in that case, also very much so. But I would be very much curious to hear more about this series, and also because on the one hand side we have these items, on the other hand side I know she does reproductions of famous artworks, like Joseph Albers, or you have these sunflowers also on show at Nada. So yes, maybe you could tell something more, Antonia.
Of course. Yeah, first of all, Helena, thank you so much for inviting me. And also, yeah, Heather and everyone at NADA for including us in the fair again this year. I love that you picked up on that kind of design conscious Instagram, surrounding ourselves by objects. I've certainly been doing that myself. And I think, you know, Gina's been working on this series for a few years now, but I think there's, you know, like so many artworks, a lot of them are kind of taking on a new meaning in this world that we're living in today. And I think certainly Gina's glitter works, you know, some of them in the past have been, you know, kind of iconic items of modernist furniture. I'm looking here in the gallery, we have one of a money tree, these kind of very typical middle class, kind of young professional things that we might recognize from our homes. And I think Gina's really considering kind of the commodification of desire and aspiration, and kind of thinking about her own generation in these works. And, you know, how we kind of construct our own environments as a sort of reflection of, our own desires, our own aspirations. This work was made this year, so I think, you know, a lot of artists are working on a smaller scale. So this is a much smaller work. It's in the gallery, it's only about this big. So yeah, it's very small. And also, I'm not a drinker, but I know that glasses of Chardonnay may have been providing people some comfort in the last few months. And yeah, what I also love about this series is that there's always, you know, Gina's kind of building this idea of a familiar protagonist with all these works. You know, they're the kind of surroundings or objects owned by a certain particular individual. And I think this work is sort of maybe more poetic than some, in that you can really see the trace of an individual in this, because there's this sort of sprinkling of red glitter. So obviously it's someone's kind of lipstick marks on the glass of wine. And I don't know, there's also a kind of glamour in these works. You know, of course, she's using very kind of craft-based, childlike, playful materials. But yeah, there is a, you know, the glitter, it is a kind of, it is a bit of glamour. And I also think that playfulness, we just need that so much today. So yeah, I think that it's a great series. Helena, what else did you ask me, and what else can I tell you?
I like what you said about the commodification of desire. But it's interesting also this female aspect. Like you said, there's a lipstick on the glass, but also it reminds me, and it's interesting how she plays with scale, because this one is almost life scale. And then I'm thinking about the purse, the bag, the luxury bag you had at FIAC last year, which was enormous, almost taking up the whole space of the booth. So that's quite, yeah.
Yeah, everyone remembers the bag. Yes, you could literally climb inside of it. So yeah, I think Gina's background was in set design initially, and then she assisted Urs Fischer for a while in New York. So I think, you know, she's, you know, this play with scale is very much something in set design. And so, and also, you know, considering sculpture itself as a, you know, thinking about objects and how they exist in the world. She's really playing with what sculpture is, what it can be, both in terms of materiality, but also in scale. So yeah, I think she's kind of really thinking about that. So I'm glad you picked up on that. What else can I tell you?
And this is now on view in your new space in London, because you opened a new space only in December, right?
Oh my God, no, in June or something. Yeah, we
June, yeah. I mean, just recently,
in December,
a few months ago.
We're in summer now. Reopen it. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, we moved from a sort of tiny space to a much larger space, which is sort of echoing around me. Gallery are notoriously terrible. But, so it's on view here in London, as are a few of the other works from our presentation. You can see behind me a few Tenant of Culture studies. And I can also tell you that it's super nice to be presenting after Marie, because the artists that she presented were also in a show at 14A in Hamburg with Gina a couple of years ago. So there's a really nice connection with that. And what I love about Nada is that you can really see the connections between the galleries sometimes. So in a kind of global pandemic, when we all feel so separate, it's nice to be reminded that we are connected. So it's really super nice to follow Marie.
Yeah, I do feel they quite work well together in a way, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And Gina's just opened, well, it was supposed to open this week, but she's got her first institutional solo at the Kunstverein in Essen, which I think Marie was saying that her artists are about to also open a show there. So maybe they'll have the following show. So and Gina studied in Hamburg before she came to study at the Royal Academy here. So there's lots of connections.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, Antonia.
My pleasure. Thanks, Helena.
Okay. This is Nika's work from Gallery Artbeat in Tbilisi. And I selected it because I find that this is extremely courageous on Sam Lome's and Natia's part to organize an in-situ installation in the gallery during lockdown, and such an ambitious one. You'll see more pictures. So yes, and also I discovered Nika's work at the occasion of the exhibition at Fondation Cartier in Paris. It was in 2019, I think, and it was about young European artists. And this installation in particular, I find very interesting. This is one that I would actually really love to see in person, because it's obviously you should immerse yourself in the presentation, and it's kind of hard to grasp from pictures. But from what I understand, it is informed by a research led by the artist in a small town or a village somewhere in Georgia. And it is interesting to see how he works with architecture and memory and the history of his natal Georgia. So, hello, Natia. It would be actually wonderful if you could describe what you
Hello, Helena, everyone. Thank you very much, Helena, for choosing a presentation for your top picks of European galleries. And I thought that because this is a site-specific installation, I thought that maybe I could show you somehow. So I'm at the gallery now, and actually in Georgia we have curfew at 9 p.m., which is like in 40 minutes. So I'm sure that I'm going to be able to show you the gallery and then go home, and then afterwards answer the questions from home. So we have two the rooms at the gallery. And I'm going to show you it's the second room that Nika transformed. So this is the one room where we have his two large paintings, and also this series of the photographs that you saw, which were and the chest of drawers, and also another painting you have here. So Nika, this is kind of, sorry, because of the floor, it's very old, so it has some noise. So now I'm going to tell you more about the installation. So this is site-specific installation, and it's called Tariel is Getting Ready for Hibernation. And actually it's Nika's fourth installation in a row. And actually the one that you saw at Fondation Cartier, it was the third one. So he has studied architecture, and only afterwards he graduated from an unofficial master's degree from Contemporary Art Center in Georgia. And so you can see that his work is very much inspired by architecture. And in this installation, so actually he has been inspired by the Cartier. So this kind of follows from the installation that he had at Fondation Cartier in 2019 that you saw. And this is the set of photographs that you showed, like the 9 photographs, which show how these tin sheets are dismantled from the house that he dismantled and he took to Fondation Cartier, and then he rebuilt this old house. So in the west of Georgia, actually people use these tin sheets to cover the houses and kind of from cold, and also from weather conditions, rain and winter. And so it's kind of a cover of the outside of the house, of the architecture. And so he kind of created in our second room a place where you can actually hibernate in winter. And I think it's like a perfect match, which was not intentional, obviously, for the winter that we are having now. So like me and Salome were talking about this, how everything is really symbolic, and this didn't happen consciously, but unconsciously it's very good timing for this installation. So and so he covered it's elevated floor in our gallery space, which has a nearly 5-meter ceiling, because it's a very old building in the historic part of Georgia. And so he built this elevated floor, and he covered it whole in a tin sheet that he brought from this mountainous village in Guria, where he is actually from. And also this village is an inspiration to him, because a lot of mountainous villages in Georgia, they become uninhabited. So people start leaving them. And in this village, there are a few people left, and only few families left, and the houses there are actually being dismantled. So that is another inspiration for him. And one new thing for Nika is that he just now started using painting as his medium. So it's the first time that his works have been exhibited. So you can see here it's oil on board, and obviously he couldn't go only with the paintings, and he built customized frames for them, which he makes himself by hand, so it's artist made. And so there are 3 of these works here, these smaller works, which are portraits of the protagonists from the village. And this is actually Tariel, who has been in all of his works, like the previous 3 works in this series. And he is the person from the village, and he also helped Nika dismantle this house. And actually another person, and from the village, the villager, he took to Cartier Foundation to Paris to help him there to build the house. So he always kind of tries to give back. And these people from the village, they're very often present in his works, in the photographs or images, or now here in the works with oil. And what else can I tell you? So there is another object that you already saw. And actually we just started to represent Nika, and we are very honored and very happy to be working with him. And this is his first work at a gallery space. So previously he only did installations outside, like in flats and in like site-specific installations. And this is the first time at a gallery space, and I think it worked really, really well. So we are very happy, and the artist is also very happy with the work.
Thank you. This looks actually really amazing. Yes.
Thank you very much. We are very happy. Unfortunately, we couldn't yet open the show for public, but because of the new regulations, which just started like last week, exactly when we were like before the open, like we wanted to open on the opening day of NADA on the 1st, but the show is going to be for like until end of February. So, and we're going to open a little bit by appointment, and as long as people can see it, we're going to be happy. Yes, and it's a great opportunity in this situation to have a chance to present it at NADA online, and to you, of course, as well.
It reminds me actually of Flo Casearu, the Estonian artist, and you should check that because it's quite interesting. She was also working with parts of roofs of abandoned houses in Estonia, and
very interesting.
She makes origami out of them, some massive and some tiny, but it's quite interesting, and similar region, and also working with these. Yeah,
definitely. I want to check it out. So
and can you tell us something about Nika's upcoming projects? Is there something we should be looking?
So this series that I'm talking about now, so he says that it's going to be a series of 7, and so he wants to finish like the 3 other works. He wants to do until the end of next year, until the end of 2021. So we are also very much looking forward to them, but they definitely are going to be no longer gallery installations, but again, like more massive installations around the city, which he has been doing before. And afterwards, I don't know what yet, but he's told me like yesterday that he already has an idea about the next topic that he really wants to work on. But first, he wants to finish this series that he's been doing now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting, and hopefully I was able to show you a little bit of the installation.
Yes, very much. Thank you. That was really helpful, actually. Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So this is Isabel's work from Parisa Kind. Unfortunately, Parisa Kind couldn't join us for this Zoom meeting. I can just say that I discovered Isabella's work in Warsaw during the Friend of a Friend, which is a gallery shared initiative happening each year in Warsaw. I can also already invite you for the upcoming edition in 2021, end of March. And yes, I was quite seduced by Isabella's small formats and very intimate scenes, which are kind of uplifting during these times, and also reminding me of Chagall or Matisse. And I was actually very interested to hear more about these works and where the inspiration comes from, because they also look kind of like film stills or these interrupted, like voyeuristic scenes. So, but yes. Unfortunately, they're not here, so. This is Emilia Kina's work. The artist Emilia herself actually joined this Zoom conversation, so I'll be able to ask her a few questions. I selected this work because I think it has this very beautiful and soothing effect. I discovered Emilia's work this year just before the first lockdown in Warsaw during her first solo presentation at Raster. It's actually a relief. It's not a flat canvas. I think it is quite interesting how it's obviously a take on the very classical art historical classical painting motif of draperies, but also taken from reliefs from antiquity. Also, because these are curtains, it reminds us of a curtain closed down over a window and the painting supposedly being an open window. But with this gesture of closing these curtains, it kind of gives an impression of cutting us from all the excess and overflow of the constant images we're surrounded with. So it has this very peaceful, nice and quiet effect and beautiful execution of the work. So I would actually, it'd be great to hear from you more about your process and also the technical side of your artworks.
Hi everyone, thank you for introducing. Maybe at first I introduce myself. My name is Emilia Kina. I live and work in Kraków. I graduated Academy of Fine Arts in the same place, and I deal with painting and sometimes with photo. Maybe I add something about this work. So I would like to add that this work is a beginning of the new Spotlight series. The motive of light is very important to me because it is an attempt to introduce an element of some narration into my work. So it's refers here to the curtains separate the viewers from the stage. So it's also about the painting. And I use the skull because I want to create a situation when which the viewer would feel like in the scenography. And maybe I talk something about the process. So I often works on several images at once or two series. And in this moment I work on two series of painting. One of them is Spotlight series, and the second I inspired by Baroque artist Cornelius Giersbrecht and his still life. So my practice starts with a general concept. At the beginning, I start to composition sketch, and then I think about color forms, and I think about what size will be the best for the particular painting, and construction on the stretcher. So the construction, it was I spent most of my time during painting because the process it's quite long and consists of several steps. At first, I prepared the wood in the shape of curtain wave. And the next, I sand the edges, glue, and stretch the canvas. And this whole process is very important because it's affect the whole finally works. But I like this preparatory process because gives me great pleasure and sense of control from the very beginning. And the last final steps, it's paint. It's quickly quite because I paint wet in wet, so I've got a limited time and I have to be well prepared for it. So I usually takes from a few hours or few days. So I think it's everything. Thanks.
You said few hours to few days to create one artwork, you mean?
Yeah, one painting, but if I got a big one, so this who is presented in Raster, few days, it's only for construction. Paid, I think it's maybe one whole day or two.
And it's also interesting what you said about scenography or the set design and this effect of like trompe-l'œil. And did you have any experience in set design yourself, or?
I also inspired of some phenomena of the work of artists, and I mean here, for example, the appearance of camera obscura. And his influence of painting. So I think this inspired me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Really beautiful works.
Thank you.
And this is the images now from Raster in Warsaw. The gallery is actually hosting artworks from several galleries, which would normally be now in Miami. So it's a selection from Raster, from Polana Institute, from Iragui, from Moscow, and I don't know if another gallery or just these three. Leto Gallery in Warsaw also. Yes. Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a work by Olga Michinska from Polana Institute, also a gallery from Warsaw. I discovered Olga's works also back a few years ago during Warsaw Gallery Weekend. And I always found them fascinating because they reminded me at the time what I saw were quite this kind of strange tools, these items. And from what I understand, her work is very much research-based, and this is a series based on the process of weaving and how it relates to technology, but also female labor and algorithms. And yes, it's all quite a fascinating mix. So it would be wonderful to hear more about this series, Justina.
So thank you very much.
We can't hear you very well, I think.
Yes, it's something with my computer. Now it's better.
A bit, but
But
not
perfect. Great. Okay. And now nothing.
you have to, yeah, scream.
So tell me if it's going to be too annoying, with my voice, okay? Lena? So Olga Michinska is a sculptor, but she's also trained as a woodworker. She studied at the Dutch Art Institute, and she's based there in Amsterdam. And she's really collaborating, even today with various craft studios of various techniques. And the craftsmanship generally in her work, is a method postulating the resistance towards the neoliberal market. And of course, this method favors the direct contact with the material, the slow work process, and attention to the detail. So those drifter drawings, Helena, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, now it's actually much better.
Okay. So those drifter drawings were born from the analysis, the study of the structure, the DNA of a textile, of a fabric. And the artist compares it to the algorithm-based technologies. and she observes that the algorithms are more and more present in our everyday life. What's more, they slowly enter our intimate zones. Like, for example, even the recipe, for the bigos, for Polish dish, can be read as an algorithm. And she says, what about start flirting with the algorithm? So the drifter drawings, in the drifter drawings, she does the manual work of like the repetitive gestures. And she discovers that when she wants to be manual, flirting with the algorithms, it is a big challenge, of course, for our concentration. So the drifting thoughts, that's the term drifter. She calls, instead of data, she calls the drawings drifter. The drifting thoughts, the distractions lead to the very big amount of errors, of the mistakes. So the regularity of the code is broken, but at the same time, it makes the algorithm more human. So maybe it is a starting point for a new approach towards the algorithms. And of course, the algorithm and the carpentry. The algorithm, the word of algorithm and word of craftsmanship deal with the same problem of being of the cultural gender, and she's questioning like both being a craft woman by herself, as the algorithms are written mainly by men, white men, I would add, but I will not. And as a consequence, for example, we have the kitchen robots with the soft woman voices only, or the sex toys only taking the shape of very attractive young women. So in the end, Olga, I think that she's kind of proclaiming, or she foresee the need of the sexual revolution also in the world of algorithm.
Yeah, it is funny, like before, where if you would find a mistake, you would always say, oh, there are mistakes because we're only humans, and now we say there are mistakes because it's only machines, how this switched. But also, yes, I find this very interesting, and how, yeah. But you're also presenting in the gallery these structures, some like weaving structures. I don't know how you call this in English.
Yes, I think that are the looms,
Yes.
and the hooks. Yes, maybe that we can see it on the last picture.
And this
installation that in a way refers to what I said, to this, I would say, to this cultural gender of craftsmanship. As Olga, as she's like she's the master of wood and the master of detail, and for her the wood is also a fetish. But here we have the looms that are culturally referred to women, of course, but the way that they are produced, and the hooks, that they are sticks, like they're different, you don't understand that the real function of the hooks can refer to the more refer to the carpentry, and carpentry is historically related to men. So it's also kind of, she also she also hoped for some revolution in thinking also about craftsmanship, as it should be finally recognized as also women work.
I find this very interesting how everything with her is very fluid and how it all connects. It's really interesting. And could you just also tell us something about the pictures, the photographs? There's a portrait and...
The pictures, it's something new in her work, I think. And she's quite happy about it. And it's also thanks to Nada and to this project, because it might be the next step. It's also very related. She wanted me to add that the models, the women that she's taking the picture of, they're also craft women. So we have kind of like the sisterhood of craft women based now in Holland. And I think that those photographs, it's a beginning of something new in her practice. I mean, I wanted to call it like a mockument, like to build a new narration, but she calls it science fiction. Maybe a movie will be the next step, but all related to the craft.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the last work from my selection. It's Pavel Pepperstein, an artist from Gallery Iragui from Moscow, whom I discovered last year during my trip to Moscow for Cosmoscope Art Fair. At the time in Moscow, the work I've seen was a large-scale painting depicting a dinner party, an imaginary dinner party with all these famous historical figures as guests. And it very much reflected how I felt in Moscow at the time, really, which was my first time. How on the one hand side it was impressive and historical, but on the other hand side, it was also quite absurd at times with the layering of culture and like this different imagery in this post-Soviet reality. So it'd be very interesting to hear more about his references and inspirations and about this work in particular. What is this? What is it referring to?
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to greet you from Warsaw. I managed to travel here to join the Raster hub of galleries. There are actually two Russian galleries here. There's another one, Fragment Gallery, which is dividing the show between Warsaw and New York. And I would like to thank Nada for binding me with the Poland network. Last year was our first participation, and we showed another great Russian artist, Olga Michinska, that was rediscovered at our booth by the director of Foxhall Gallery Foundation, and they invited us to be part of this friend-to-friend festival, which finally was cancelled this year. But the team of Foxhall decided to keep the show, and in spite of the pandemic situation, we managed to make a beautiful show of Olga Michinska on 2 floors of Foxhall Gallery Foundation, and which I haven't personally seen, but it was the work been sent and the mounting of the show was online. And it was all that relationship with Foxhall was done at NADA last year at Miami. So when Lucas from Raster called me and invited me to be part of this group at their platform, I was more than happy. And this time I brought 2 artists in dialogue. One is Portuguese artist Carlos Daronio Feo. He was with me till today. And Pavel Pepperstein, who is a very dear artist to me because my gallery basically started with him. And I mean, at the time when we met, I was still living in France, and I curated one of his first shows. And then when I moved to Moscow, I mean, he was guiding me through the situation with contemporary art in Moscow. And I mean, I've been absent all the 90s in the country, and I kindly saw the life changes through his eyes. And he's still, in spite of the fact that he became quite famous now, at least in Russia, we keep a very close friend relationship, and I do appreciate him as an artist and as a personality. And actually, I found out that he's more than a visual artist for Russians in any way, because he's also a writer. He writes the books. I can show you. There's one of his latest books edited by Garage. It's the trilogy. It's called The Book of Our Times. And the impact that he has on Russian minds is incredible. So the drawings for Pavel, it's the top of the iceberg. And all his artistic activity, he's fighting against the exclusiveness of contemporary art, and he wants to reach a larger public. And this is the reason why he writes. This is the reason why he's making movies. He's tried rap. He even tried to do fashion. So he's constantly experimenting. And when you ask him what is he, how does he sees himself? First thing he says that he is an agent of Russian language, and it's true that he is a bright representative of so-called Moscow conceptualism, the term which was invented by Boris Groys to describe the work of Kabakov at the time. And Moscow conceptualism is truly something not about the minimalism and the form, but about the relation between the image and the word. And we're now at the fragment of this drawing, but most of the drawings of Pavel are signed, and they have small, not the explanation, but small text on them. And that gives you the clue. But it's actually, they're not the illustrations. So it's actually like the keys for you to construct your own movie. And so when you see this drawing in whole, you'll see the head of a Georgian man, Gear, I don't know, yeah, there. We present here two drawings of his from the same series. It's called the Marblehead Hunters. And originally this drawing has been done for the Academy of Fine Arts in St. Petersburg. He was invited to lecture there, and at the same time he did the show. And so this drawing, it's a series of drawings dedicated to the marble heads of the future. So it's like a small, I mean, these drawings, they often lead to the creation of the new stories, new books. So I will believe in sometime soon we will find a book called Marblehead. So the short story of this Marbleheads, it's like from 2066, so it's nearest future. People in different corners of Earth will start to find Marbleheads resembling sculpture fragments in most unexpected places. And we don't know the origin of these heads. It's so-called X heads. We don't know how they were manufactured, and it's mysterious heads that will enter collective consciousness as Marblehead hunters. There will be much fierce controversy about these findings. Scientists and the society will put various hypotheses, including some very bold ones. There will be a theory that it's coming from the extraterrestrial. That's why it's called the X heads. And so it's the heads like represent this extraplanetary activities, and it will remain unclear though why exactly aliens aliens or people of the future might flood the earth with these fragment sculptures. So why there are so many of them on this earth. And the lack of information will be compensated by the influence of X heads on living people. So in the vicinity of heads, many patients will get rid of their diseases. Some will claim that physically proximity of artifacts enriches their consciousness, and etc., etc. And I think in large, I mean, this is an illusion for the future development of the tradition to collect, because we actually miss the tradition of collection now. I mean, everyone talks about this famous Russian collectors before revolution, but I mean, in Soviet times, all the traditions to collect things been, I mean, not just forgotten, but prohibited. So we're really, in nowadays, like assisting to the birth of a new generation of collectors. And I think this legend that Pavel creating is this his reflection on the future collection tradition in the country. So all the personalities in the drawing is, of course, it's a complete fiction, and as I say, I mean, everyone is set up to interpret further what they see in these drawings.
Wow, thank you. That's very rich and very fascinating indeed. So
I must say that it's also in Orthodox culture, we have very little sculpture. We're not I mean, it's the Orthodox Church is not decorated with sculptures. So it's really like for Russians, I mean, to watch the sculpture, it's a challenge. So, and if you take, I mean, I think it's Sigmund Freud who said that for centuries, sculpture has been both concentrating and resembling neurosis. So it's a kind of a challenge of you know, for the Russian collector to comprehend and understand the 3D volume object. So what people collect nowadays is mostly flat. And of course, I mean, there's few open minds, but I mean, the object is still has a difficulty to enter the private collection. And so I kind of like this teasing of Pavel about the fragments of sculptures. It's a kind of clin d'oeil to the lack of a tradition at looking at this kind such things.
There is a question in the chat. Who is Gia Kokiladze? I don't know how to pronounce the surname. Is a character from the book then?
The book doesn't exist yet. I mean, as I said,
so like
I mean, I think I hope in the future there's going to be a book like this, but at the moment it's just a series of drawings, and that's it.
So
the gear is just an image, one of the headhunters. Every drawing with the head has his own collector hunter. So this gear was hunting and found the Siam's two-headed sculpture.
So it's a fantastical, I mean, name and imagined, yes.
Completely, it's the imagination of the artist. Everything is fictional.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah.
My pleasure.
Olga's exhibition, which you mentioned, which happened earlier this year at Foxal, which I've seen, was also really beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
You like it?
Olga, yes, very much. In Moscow, I visited her studio. Actually, she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's.
Okay, so I think yes, that's all.
It was the perfect hour, right at noon. So if there's no more questions, I think we can wrap things up. But I wanted to say thank you to Helena for making such a lovely selection from the fair, and thanks to all these other great women who are here and for presenting your work and being part of the fair. We're super excited to have you. And I hope you enjoyed the panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Helena.
Lovely to
Thanks.
see
Bye.
you. Bye. Thank you, Helena.